Caesar, my God, are countless, and exceedingly plenteous are your compassions. All the raindrops are counted by you, and the sand of the sea is before your eyes. How much more are there?
Are you a noble person? In an age of equality and democracy, we don't really have noblemen anymore. That word usually refers to a particular aristocratic class of society, people who are very rich and who often ruled, served in the governments and so on. But for the Christian, that's not what being noble means. We take our meaning of the word from the use of it in St. Paul's letter to the Philippians in chapter 4, verse 8. This is what St. Paul said. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. Now, the Greek word that St. Paul uses here that we translate into English as noble is semnos. And this comes from a root word, sebomai, which means to revere or to adore. So something that is noble, something that is semnos, is something that is worthy of reverence and adoration. But the kinds of things that St. Paul lists in that verse as being worthy of reverence and adoration are not really the kinds of things that people reverence and adore today. In the corporate world, for example, in the business world, you're much more likely to be admired if you're ruthless, if you're ambitious, if you get the job done, if you are capable of totally annihilating the opposition, the competition. And so people get to be kind of classified as winners and losers, and that's not just in the corporate world. It often flows out into a lot more of our life in society today. This is the inevitable consequence of a society where being noble is not a chief principle, but competition has taken its place. Now, competition actually brings a lot of benefits. It brings material benefits. It's a powerful motivator for people to work hard, to produce bigger and better things. It's what drives the economy of a nation and makes it grow and become wealthier. But on the other hand, it also has a lot of immaterial negative consequences. It brings harm upon people, particularly upon the losers, although it does also bring bad effects on the winners. But losers are seen by others, and often by themselves as well, as being responsible for their own failure. You didn't try hard enough. If you had worked harder, you would have been a winner too. So in other words, it's your fault that you're a loser. And this can have a horrible effect on people's mental health, on their sense of self-worth. Even worse, it's only in that kind of a society where you can hear, as I saw on the news a few days ago, people actually saying that the elderly and the sick should be willing to die during this pandemic because we need to keep business running. We need the economy to keep running. So those people who are really a drain on society, those losers, they should admit that they don't deserve to be around and let the winners get on with their life. This is social Darwinism at its worst. It's survival of the fittest, and everyone else doesn't matter. This is not the Christian gospel. People like Jesus and St. Paul didn't measure a person's worth by whether they were an economic winner or a loser. Nowhere in the Bible do you find the verse that says, "Blessed are the winners in life," or "Blessed are those who've got what it takes." In fact, in the verse that I read a little earlier, St. Paul's idea of what is noble, what is worthy of reverence and adoration, involves things like truth and justice and purity and beauty. something that is so lovely that it draws you to admire it. There's nothing there about competition. There's nothing there about making it. There's nothing there about being a winner in the material sense. And in fact, the Christian gospel in its pure form is all about letting go of all of those self-serving impulses to acquire to myself, whether it be material wealth or position or popularity or any of those kinds of things. Jesus never taught or exhorted people to be winners. What he did consistently teach people, though, was that they should lend and expect nothing in return. Forgive even the unworthy. Share whatever you have, food, clothing, material goods. Share it with other people who don't have it. And even be willing to die for other people. Notice this is different, right? The people I was speaking about before on the news, they want other people to die for them. What Jesus is saying is, you be the one to say, I will give my goods and even my life for others. There's a very big difference here. This is the Christian concept of nobility, this kind of unconditional love and regard for others. This is what is worthy of reverence and adoration. And these are the ways of thinking that we should meditate upon and internalize so that they become our character. And look, by being noble in the Christian sense, you may not get ahead in life, in the material world. Look, maybe you will. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. The whole point of the gospel is that doesn't matter. That's not what's important. What matters is your character, because that's the only thing you're going to take with you when you leave this world. It's the only thing that really matters. Parents spend a lot of time today imbuing their kids with the motivation to study hard and a good work ethic, life habits that will help them to succeed in their studies and then eventually in their career. And they want to be good role models for them and show them that this is how you do things. But I wonder how many parents invest that much time in modeling and teaching their children to have a noble character. I remember when I was a primary school student, way back last century, and we'd have a daily soccer match, a football match in the playground, and we'd just, divide ourselves up into teams and we'd play. And I remember a number of kids who were very good soccer players would find themselves in the team that's winning, and halfway through lunchtime they'd switch from the team that's winning to join the team that's losing. What were they doing there? They weren't exulting in saying, look at me, I'm a winner, haha, I beat you losers. What they were doing is they felt it was more important to help those who were losing, in a very small way, in other words, to help those who were in need. It's a very small gesture that probably most people didn't even notice, but it says an awful lot about their attitude to life and the character from which that attitude arises. Look, today, in a time of crisis during this pandemic, what's inside people is starting to come to the surface to a degree that I don't think I've ever seen before, certainly not in my lifetime. And we're seeing good things and we're seeing bad things. We're seeing governments fighting over desperately needed medical supplies and masks and respirators and trying to outbid each other, each one competing, looking after their own needs. We've seen that on an individual level. People at supermarkets fighting over toilet paper and flour and basic things like that. But we've also seen a lot of noble character. We've seen a lot of people sacrificing themselves, often heroically. All our health workers who are putting themselves at risk every day. All those people who are doing all the other kinds of services that have to keep going, putting themselves at risk of illness and possibly death. People who are sharing with others, people who are reaching out to their neighbours, with a suitable social distance, of course, but providing them with the groceries that they need or helping them out around their garden or whatever it might be. Look, I know that this pandemic is not as bad as the Second World War, but there is one similarity. In World War II, that too was a huge crisis that brought out the best and the worst in people. And by the time it was over, and by the time the dust had settled, some people's souls had become ennobled by the sacrifices they made at their own personal risk, purely out of care for other people. And other people lost their souls through that experience, through the cruelty and the greed that they practiced. This pandemic too will be over one day. And the choices that you and I make, all of us, the choices that we make now, will also mould our souls. Will we come out of this ennobled or ignoble? Because that's the only thing that really matters. Tomorrow I have another special guest joining me for Book Thursday. I won't tell you who he is yet, I'll just give you a hint. He lives in a one-story universe. I don't have a joke for you today, but little Arthur wanted to pop in and say hello, which is very appropriate because he is a very noble creature, and he wants to tell you goodbye and God bless you. Bye.
Your mercies, O my God, are countless, and exceedingly plenteous are your compassions. All the raindrops are counted by you, and the sand of the sea is before your eyes. How much more are the sins of my soul manifest before you, O my Lord? Sins that I have committed, do not remember, my Lord, and do not count my iniquity. For you have chosen the publican, and the adulteress you have saved, and the right-hand thief, my Lord, you have remembered. And I to the sinner, teach me, O my Lord, to offer repentance. For you do not desire the death of a sinner, but rather that he returns, and that his soul may live. Restore us, O God, to your salvation, and deal with us according to your goodness. For you are good and merciful, let your compassion speedily come to us. Compassion upon us, O Lord God, our Saviour, and have mercy upon us according to your great mercy. Remember those, O Christ our Master, be among us, and proclaim and say, my peace I give to you, the peace of my Father I live with you. O King of peace, grant us your peace, establish for us your peace, and forgive us our sins. Disperse the enemies of the church, and fortify her that she may not be shaken forever. Emmanuel, our God, is now in our midst with the glory of his Father and the Holy Spirit. May he bless our soul and purify our heart, and heal the sicknesses of our souls and bodies. We worship you, O Christ, with your good Father and the Holy Spirit, for you have come and saved us.